Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for being so punctual. The Filmmakers Forum is an activity of the School of Media and Communication organized by the Nollywood Studies Center. And it's supposed to be a platform to facilitate engagement amongst the filmmakers and between the filmmakers and the public at large. Our topic today is an interesting one. It's one that we all always want to know a little bit more of. How do the cinemas work? Cinema programming and the economics of exhibition and access in Nollywood. Recent events have shown that there is a need to talk more about this for everyone to have an understanding. And we're thrilled today to have persons, our guests, who are going to do a very good task here to give us an insight into how the cinemas function. And I'm very grateful to our guests. We have with us Ladun Awobokun, Chief Content Officer at Filmone Entertainment, Michael Dale Williams, the General Manager of Ebonylife Place, Funmi Onuma, the General Manager, Silverbird Cinemas, West Africa, and Patrick Lee, Head of Operations at Viva Cinemas and Viva Film Distribution. I thank you all very much indeed for accepting our invitation to be here. The way this will work for our audience is there will be an opportunity to ask questions. If you just put your questions in the chat box, and we will take them as we go along. If I may just ask our guests now, if they could please put in their cameras so that we can get going. Once again, I welcome you all. Right, thank you very much. So as I was saying, our guests include Ladun Awobokun. Ladun is a seasoned content executive with over 15 years of experience driving growth across film production, distribution, market research, and streaming in Africa's creative economy. As Chief Content Officer at Filmone Entertainment, part of the Film House Group, she leads the group's overall content strategy, spanning development, production, licensing, and aggregation. In July 2025, she took on the role of Head of Content Acquisition at Kava, a next-generation streaming platform dedicated to amplifying African stories for global audiences. Ladun leads the team that represents the exclusive theatrical interests of Walt Disney, Sony Pictures, and Warner Brothers across Anglophone West Africa. Under her leadership, Filmone has distributed 90% of the highest-grossing Nollywood titles of all time, including the 3 films that have surpassed the 1 billion naira box office milestone. With a slate of 300-plus releases, generating over $10 million in combined theatrical and ancillary revenues. She also oversees Filmone Studios, Nigeria's most active co-production powerhouse. Beyond her commercial impact, Ladun has played an integral role in the onboarding of Comscore within the region and serves as editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Box Office Yearbook from 2021 till date. Ladun, it's good to see you again. Welcome, and thank you for being with us once again.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Very nice to be here.
Okay. Our other panelist is Michael Dale Williams. Michael is an entrepreneur, marketing consultant, and senior executive with over 30 years of experience in brand strategy, marketing communications, and organizational leadership. He is currently the general manager of Ebonylife Place, a multi-purpose leisure and culture destination in Victoria Island, Lagos, comprising a boutique hotel, restaurant, a 5-screen cinema, and event spaces. In this role, he oversees operations and positioning for one of Nigeria's leading lifestyle and entertainment hubs. He also partners with Ace Hospitality in the management of Landmark Hotel and Beach Resort Oniru. Previously, Michael served as managing director of the Cross River Tourism Bureau from 2010 to 2015, where he led tourism development initiatives and major cultural events. He is the author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, The More 3 Formula, focused on customer service and business growth, and writes the blog From Kingston to Calabar, An Unexpected Journey, reflecting on leadership, culture, and enterprise. Michael, thank you very much for being with us. You are most welcome.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Our other panelist is Funmi Onuma. Funmi is a film exhibition executive and strategic business leader with over 18 years of experience across the film, media, and entertainment industry in West Africa. She's currently the general manager, Silverbird Cinemas West Africa, where she leads regional strategy, operations, and market expansion for Silverbird. Funmi's career spans nearly 2 decades, including 10 years as country manager for Silverbird Cinemas Ghana, where she played a critical role in stabilizing and scaling the business. During this period, she led a turnaround that moved the operation from a significant deficit to achieving over 400% business growth within 4 years. Her leadership also delivered improved operational efficiency, reducing wastage by approximately 60% through streamlined exhibition and distribution processes. She has overseen multi-location cinema operations across Ghana and Nigeria, with responsibility for cinema, food, and retail operations in Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja. She conceptualized and launched community-centric cinema venues, introducing digital engagement strategies to capture younger demographics. Beyond operations, Funmi is committed to mentorship and industrial development with a focus on supporting women in film and media through structured training and advocacy. Funmi, thank you very much for being with us and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Our fourth and certainly not the least guest here is Patrick Lee. Patrick is a cinema operations executive with extensive experience within Nigeria's cinema sector. He is currently the head of operations at Viva Cinemas and Viva Film Distribution. Patrick previously served as chairman and executive member of the Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria, CIAN, playing a central role in professionalizing cinema operations in Nigeria and West Africa. During his tenure, he led the introduction of ComScore, establishing Nigeria's first verifiable cinema box office reporting system. Under his leadership, CIAN achieved international recognition, securing membership in the National Association of Theatre Owners and the Global Cinema Federation. He also led the development of the cinema industry's COVID-19 Safe to Reopen framework, enabling a coordinated return to operations nationwide. Patrick's operational career includes senior roles as Chief Operating Officer at Ozone Cinemas from 2016 to 2019, where he oversaw the launch of Ozone Cinemas Yaba, the first cinema on mainland Lagos, as well as earlier roles as general manager of Ozone Cinemas and the E-Center Mall from 2008 to 2016. He has also worked as a management consultant to Ebonylife Cinemas. Patrick, thank you very much for being with us and welcome.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you, Patrick.
I have a few challenges. Connection.
No trouble. No trouble. We understand network issues. So here we are. The cinema operations, we could say, were thrown very much into the limelight over the holiday period, in which we got various complaints about people talking about the scheduling system, some people complaining about how they perceived they were unfairly treated, so on and so forth. And well, this is an opportunity for us to get a proper understanding of how things work. And I think we can start by asking if you, the panelists who are very much in that sector and experts in the field, can take us through what the process is for getting one's film onto the screen in the cinemas. If I may start with you, Funmi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, yes, I'm my name is Funmi Onuma. I manage Silverbird Cinemas, and my core area of expertise is film exhibition. So basically for us at the cinemas, I would say the first line of action is dealing with a distributor. Sometimes, but rarely, we have independent distributors where we have producers that come directly to the cinemas, and usually those are low budget films. They are, will I say, local. They are really local products, local films, not national or regional. So with that, you come to the cinemas, we discuss sharing terms, we understand your film, we know what, we ask for certain documents, which a distributor would have actually helped you, things like your censorship certificates, if the films have been registered, because sometimes we've had issues in the past where films have gone to the cinemas and we had to pull them out. So you will deal with the producer or the distributor, discuss sharing terms, we sign legal documents, agreements, then we schedule the films. And if it's okay with you, then we are good to go. So that's as an exhibitor.
Just a bit of clarification for me. You said local, not national or regional. What exactly
Yes,
is the
I'm
difference?
talking about in the Nigerian sector. Nigerian sector, we have major distributors, but rarely we've had one or two independent titles coming to the cinema just to show a region for, would I say, if you have a title and you're a new filmmaker and your budget is, will I say, under 20 million production costs, and you just want to show your movie to your community, trying to,
Okay.
maybe you've moved from YouTube to the cinema. So I wouldn't call that, that's just a local a product for a certain group of people. But you have national distribution and regional distribution, which is actually common in Ghana. Ghana, we don't have any distributor locally registered. We deal with a lot of independent titles in Ghana. So we've done that for over 15, 16 years in Ghana. And somehow the industry itself has accepted that line of business where the producer deals with the cinemas directly. They don't go through distributors. You understand? So, and that's, will I say,
Right.
that has affected the growth of the industry themselves. The industry players complain about lack of growth, but because they've decided to stay local, the industry has, has a staunch growth. So they feel there's no need for a distributor. They don't understand the importance of a distributor, and really they don't understand the supply chain, like the lifeline of the film. So by the time you get to the cinema, you're dealing with a product that can be pirated. A distributor would guide you on all those things. They'll guide you about legal agreements with soundtracks, so many other things that a distributor will be able to explain better. But from our side, as an exhibitor, we've struggled with issues where we've had to pull films, even in Ghana. Rarely it happens in Nigeria, but in Ghana, it's been off and on. It's quite, will I say, I won't say normal. I won't use that word. It's quite common to see a movie at the cinema, somebody comes up and says they use my soundtrack without authorization, you have to pull it out. And sometimes you're the last to hear about it. Someone goes on social media and says, Silverbird is showing a movie, a movie with my soundtrack, they didn't pay royalties and blah, blah, blah. And we just, it's an industry that it's quite, has thrived with being an independent will I say, an independent system where everybody feels that the distributor wouldn't really help them or is trying to rip them off. I think that's the only way I can put it across. But in Nigeria, we've had we had one or two titles last year showing at my cinemas, which were independent titles. And maybe because of the bottleneck in becoming a distributor in Nigeria, you have to have done 2 years or something before you're accepted into their organization. I'm not so sure. I'm speaking as an exhibitor, so I don't really, maybe Ladun will be able to share some insights into distribution. So for us at cinemas, yes, independent titles are there, but it has these disadvantages as which outweigh the advantages.
Right. Thanks very much, Funmi. That clarifies it a bit. Let me turn to you, Patrick, with the same question. If there's anything you want to add to what Funmi has said, the process for getting one's film onto the screen, in the cinemas. And if I could also ask you to focus, because Funmi said something about the sharing formula. That is something that usually people are very are very, you could say, keen to know about. So over to you, Patrick, please.
Okay, we have an agreed sharing formula. Basically, it's been in place for over 10 years now. And it's basically 50, 45, 40, whereby in the first week of a movie being released in the cinema, the sharing formula is 50-50. Producer gets 50% and the exhibitor gets 50%. Then second week, exhibitor gets 55, producer gets 45. And it goes down to 40. At 40, it doesn't go lower than that. There are certain exceptions whereby if you have certain movies that are titled blockbuster movies, the exhibitors may accept 55% as the sharing formula for the first week, which means in the first week, the exhibitor takes 45%, the distributor and the producer take 55%, and we take 45 as exhibitors. But those are the exceptions as opposed to the rule. In general, it's 50, 45, 40. Those are the sharing formulas. The other thing I think worth noting is even though a movie gets introduced to a cinema or a cinema chain, the cinemas don't necessarily have to accept it. They may refuse to accept a movie, either for the fact that they don't have the space. As you know, we release over 50 Nollywood titles in a year, which is about one a week on average. Sometimes you get a skipped week, we still end up getting 2 in the following week. And if you have a movie that's currently selling in the cinema and you don't have too much space, that movie will end up taking most of your space. So you have a situation whereby you are asked to take a new movie and you may consider that, look, I'll stick with what I have and not necessarily accept the new movie, depending on the space that you have. And for a chain, you might determine that you will accept the movie, but you won't show it in all your cinemas, simply because of space as well, or because you might be of the opinion that another movie might do better in a particular location as opposed to the one you're being offered, meaning another movie that's currently showing. Or even if you're offered 2 or 3 movies and you might look at the 2 movies and say, I'm going to select this one, but this one, I don't need it for this particular location. So it isn't guaranteed that once a movie is offered to the cinema will accept and will show it in all its cinema chains, cinemas that it has under its chain, or even if it has only one cinema, it might still decide that it'll accept only 1 out of the 2 it's been offered for that week. So that there are no guarantees. But generally, cinemas try as much as possible to ensure that they take the movies and give it a chance to sell within their own cinemas. So it's oftentimes how would I put it? It's a challenging game for an exhibitor, most especially when you have busy periods of the year like Christmas, Easter, holiday periods. They're often challenging times in trying to select and ensure that the selection you make is the best for your cinema.
Right. Thanks very much, Patrick. Let me turn now to Ladun. Funmi has indicated, Ladun, that you should be able to say more in terms of the exhibition. No, not exhibition now, in terms of distribution. So let me turn to you with a similar question. What is the process? The aspects which have not come up yet, which you think should be put on the forefront?
Morning, everyone. Thanks again for having me. I think everything has been discussed from the exhibition point of view, which is how you get your film into a cinema in Nigeria specifically. The only thing, and I'm going to reference what Funmi was talking about, which is how do you register as a distributor? Because we do have like I don't know what to call it. Maybe Mr. Patrick would tell me, is it a trade association or is it a community. I'm not sure what FDAN, I don't know what we're calling FDAN these days. Tapa, can you please help?
FIDAN, it's FIDAN.
If, what are we calling it? Is an association? Yeah. I think, yeah,
I'm
so
not
you
a
need to.
member.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, but I'm not, yeah, anyway. So it's a distributor association and you have to be registered on there. And the rules really are the stand, because there's a bond, I guess you can call it, with Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria. So the rule is for you to be able to distribute to the CN cinemas, which is really all of them, all the majors, you need to be a member of FIDAN. And so we as Filmone have made it a rule. So for instance, we will not distribute to a cinema that is not registered to CN. And those are like, it will not change. Those are rules. If you are not registered to CN, we will not distribute to you. And the expectation is that the expectation is that the Seance cinemas are also doing the same thing, such that they're asking that if you are not a member of FIDAN, they would not receive films from you. So that's how we run it.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, Michael, I turn to you with this question. Keeping in mind or rather linking it to what Patrick said, in terms of sometimes the themes, the cinema cannot take on all the themes it's offered, lack of space, so on and so forth. Given the limited number of cinemas and screens, paired with the high number of films being produced, would it be correct to say that cinema programming has become a critical issue in our film industry?
So morning, everyone, and thanks for having me. I wouldn't say it's become critical. I mean, it's always been critical. You know, the number of films coming out is, can be very high in a year. And don't forget, we're not just talking about Nollywood, we're talking about Hollywood titles as well, and international titles. Right. And we've never had more cinemas than we've had now. So if anything, it might be getting easier. What's difficult is maybe a lot of us as cinemas don't have the number of screens that you might see in a North American theater that might have 14, 15, up to 20 screens. So they're able to program almost anything they wish to program. We don't necessarily have the number of titles that would be where we would need that number of screens for. So the ones that we have, I would say we very rarely have a dilemma about programming. It tends to be more when the filmmakers don't understand why we make the decisions we make. And then people get very emotional about, and you can understand it, you've sweated and you've spent a lot of money making a film that a cinema is telling you, we don't really think it's good enough for our audience. That's bound to be very emotional for a filmmaker. And so that's when it becomes difficult, when people take it personally and they see it as maybe an insult to their creativity or their hard work or their investment. But I can only speak for Ebonylife as very much a data-driven type of operation. We just follow the numbers. We know people. We have a lot of friends. I mean, I'm looking at all my friends on screen right now. Ladun, everybody, Patrick, I know everybody, but we make decisions based on our commercial interests while we remain friendly, and the same thing goes for filmmakers. So the fact that you really feel sorry for somebody who's really worked hard to produce a film that won't connect with your audience, can't program the film simply because you don't want someone to break down crying. You have to think of the audience. And that is true for everything we do. So typically what will happen is we're approached by a distributor and we are asked to look at a number of films. Usually, if there's a lot of publicity around a film, there's a trailer, et cetera, we already have a sense of what the film is going to do. If, however, it's from a new filmmaker or someone just coming out of nowhere, we look at the film. Our cinema manager will watch the film. I don't usually even get involved. The cinema manager will watch the film and she'll make a judgment based on our audience. And that's the thing that filmmakers have to understand. Everything we do is audience driven. We're not going to pick a film that won't be watched. So for example, we know our audience is 19 to 35 years old. That's like 70 to 75% of our audience. We know it's about 60% female. And we already know the audience preferences. So if a film comes out that has a very sort of, as Funmi was talking about, regional or local films, when a film has a very local or regional feel to it, quite often it's not suitable for our audience. In the case of our audience, situated in Victoria Island, most of the people tend to prefer Hollywood films. So they will only watch Nollywood films if they are quite big titles, either very well marketed or by well-respected filmmakers. Otherwise, no one's really interested. And so if it's one of those periods where there are very few Hollywood films coming out and there aren't any big Nollywood titles, and we take one of these films, you know, instead of people watching the film will be watching the seats. There'll be nobody there. And so that's the reality for us as cinemas. We're always trying to program in a way that we've got the maximum number of people in each cinema at all times. That's the overall, because in the end, the more people are buying concessions, the more people who are giving better value for all the diesel that you're running with your generators, more people are paying for the staff that you employ. If you're doing it on sentiment, it doesn't make any sense. So the idea that we would be programming films based on which producers we like or we don't like would be commercial suicide.
Thank you very much. It sounds straightforward, really, and of course commonsensical, how you have put it. But why is it that this is not understood? This whole thing of the process, that the numbers really drive number, and then the determination of the audience drive this. What has been your experience in this regard, Funmi, if I may ask? Why is it that, because I'm sure you have explained this numerous times to people who come to you with films, what is the challenge you have observed that people have in understanding this, leading them to say that it's a bias system, and they're being kept from the screens deliberately, so on and so forth?
I think for us, for me, most times, like I said, people don't know how important a distributor is to their film. Basically, some people come to the cinemas or to their distributors with finished products. From my experience, I would prefer you come with a story, then they walk you through the casting,
Right.
movie scheduling, when to release your film. Everybody doesn't need to release in December. Understand who your target audience is. Understand, is it a national production? The rules that actually, even the censorship rules, what the law applied, like in Ghana, there is a liberal country. There's any things that Nigerian censorship boards wouldn't accept, like 50 Shades of Grey. It wasn't accepted. I think they had some issues with it, but in Ghana, like just a stamping it because they are liberal. It's a liberal society, but Ghana will frown at political films, at you know, but yeah, mostly around political films. You can do anything, religion, anything, you know, certain things that like we had issues in December with Inedo's movie, and it was public, you know, the Christian Association wrote to the cinemas and everything, but it was well received in Ghana because, like, this is December, a movie, the title was different from the movie. There was nothing better about the film, but there was this thing about religion which gets a lot of Nigerians walked on, both religions, like the top two, basically. So the thing is, will I say that's why we are here with Lagos Business School educating the upcoming filmmaker? and the established filmmaker that wants to rebrand, the whys and how, for whom and what and when of the whole industry is you come to me with a finished product, you don't have a marketing budget, you've exhausted all your money producing the film, and the distributor says, okay, I'm going to take 30% because I'm going to use 10% for marketing. You're already feeling like you're being ripped off. You understand? But you need to market your products. Marketing is so key to every great movie. Every movie that has done well, has broken box office, has invested at least 30% of their budget on marketing. Marketing reminds people to come. I use Coke as an example. Is a brand that you can get anywhere in the world, but they still have a marketing budget yearly. So why do you think that because you made X amounts 3 years ago, people already know you? No, every great Hollywood production usually has the budget. So the thing is, you come to the distributor with the finished product, the distributor brings it to us, and we tell them, please, do you have marketing materials, t-shirt, banners, and like, oh, sorry, we're working with a lean budget and all that. And so what do you want us to do? We already have marketing budgets per film. We won't go beyond because we already have other costs. We have rental costs, tax obligations, staffing, equipment. Don't forget our equipment our manufacturers are not in Africa. They're outside the country. We're dealing with shipping charges. We're dealing with anything can happen situations. We had COVID. We had so many issues, litigation issues, somebody saying they came to the cinema, they hit their leg against something. So you're just name it. We have those kind of issues. And maybe a field producer feels that you're ensured his movie failed, like you intentionally wanted his movie to fail. So you either take it to court, you settle, you don't get to court. Some we've gotten sued with some. I have a particular situation that I would use an example in Ghana. I'm representing Ghana because it's like I said, independent distribution is common. So with that, you have more issues than a structured Nigeria where you have distributors and you can handle your distributor. I have my personal issues with distributors, which I'm going to reach out to them one-on-one, but it's the fact that their producers, they need to keep their producers in check. There should be a wall. I don't need to know them. They don't need to be my friend. You understand? So, but it kind of, we had a particular product that came to the cinema and they sold us for $1 million. Why? They said there was something about a certain village that was projected in a movie shown at the Silverbird cinemas. So they took us to court, not the owner of the movie. They felt that we should have checked it out. So I was paying my lawyer aside retainership to go to court for something I had no business being in court. Yes, it was kicked out, but legal fees and all that, and for $1 million, what do you want me to, like my directors would have, practically, it was just, so we have issues like that. So the importance of, so saying educating them and all that, it's why we are here. And I know the industry, we just finished an event yesterday, it was the business forum, and we have conversations on this and all that. But I believe ignorance is not an excuse in today's world. For Silverbird Cinemas, we've been around for 22 years. So basically, you say you're not aware, but there are certain things that we have been doing over time that hasn't changed. Do you understand? Discussing with you and telling you this person, even casting, your distributor will tell you this person is already marked. There was a certain producer that people gave her a name because of her political stance. A few years later, she had a new name, and that name made her some good money. Ladun is smiling. But that's the thing, is casting is really key. They know who has been marked and by the public, and they know who is great for the screens. So it's so that's it. The importance of you working, just don't come to us with a finished product. Go to your distributor with a finished product. You definitely will I say downplay yourself and limit your growth game at the cinemas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Funmi. Now, Ladun, Michael has said that one of the a key factor in deciding what to put on the screens or not is really the audience. But now there's also the question of the times of the year. Okay, the holiday season, or what is the best time to put it on screen, so on and so forth. What are the other factors that come into play in deciding when to take a film and when to show it?
Okay, in deciding, well, not when to take a film, you can take a film anytime, but in deciding whether to take a film, it's really the quality of the film and, like Funmi said, the cast, etc. In releasing, and I discussed this yesterday, which is interesting, but in deciding when to release it, there are many seasons. Like, I think that Nigeria is one of those countries that is blessed with so many holidays that really and truly it's not just December, it is Easter, it is the small Salah, then the big Salah, then there's June 12th, then there's Muhammad's birthday, then there's May 1st. So there's a lot of these holidays that you can sort of plan with. Generally in cinema business, if it's, and this is globally, when there's a bank holiday, you will have more people come into the cinema, there'll be more admissions, period. So you can plan around those days. And as a distributor as well, I have seen that there's certain films that perform better at certain holidays. Like, there's some holidays that no one wants to see a sad film. And I know this because we've made the mistake as well and put a sad film in the holiday thinking that it would be fine because it was a holiday, and it bombed. So you are looking at the seasons, yes. You are also putting the bigger films in those seasons, standard. But you are also looking at the scheduling. So in terms of the landscape, what is releasing in that period? And yesterday I had referenced Easter, where Easter is typically a big season and the films would come out. But last Easter, we had maybe about 7 films that came out. This is like distributor wide. And it was a problem because everyone was capped at a certain level and no one could really scale higher. So people that ideally their films would make 250, 300 million, at the box office, we're struggling to get to 200 million because there was simply no space. There are limited screens, there are a ton of, and these were Nollywood films. Meanwhile, there's still Hollywood films that are shown in the cinema, and the film booker, Michael referenced it. It's a big Hollywood site. So they're saying, we want to support these Nollywood faces that are good, but I know that my audience is going to ask for Hollywood films. Then you have to do a balance of some sort, but the balance is still tilted towards what your audience wants. And this is where the producers now get upset because they're saying, I only have X number of showtimes. Why does this person why does this person have more showtimes? Or why does this film have more showtimes? I was saying, well, we have studied the pattern for what our audience likes. This is what works in the cinema. And people hate when we say this, but it is a business. So you cannot allow the films watch the seats, using Michael's reference. People, there have to be bumps on seats, and you will do what makes sure or what assures bumps on seats as a cinema.
Right. But Patrick, I saw an interview of yours in which you were responding to the question of, the accusation, I think that's a better word, that people had made that their films were deliberately shortchanged. Either they were pulled out or that people said that they were given times of the day in which it was guaranteed that there will be nobody around. It took a moment. That really, that whole process of what times of day a film is given and why some of those smaller, and really how the system, you could say, what does the system do to protect both the exhibitor and protect the filmmaker?
Okay, it's generally there isn't any kind of favoritism being done in the cinemas, as often misconstrued by producers. It's a business, just like Michael said. We're in the business to pay our bills and to see if we can make a profit. So the overriding factor is, what do we believe our customers want to watch? Now, for every movie that gets released, virtually every movie, they are always given an opportunity to sell during the first week. So if you're programming a movie, you will give it at least one good show during the first week. And remember, at any given time, a movie is competing with, in some cases, up to 10 other movies showing in that cinema at the same time, depending on how many screens they have available. So you might be restricted to giving just one or maybe two really good times during the first week. No problem. The issue then becomes, how well has that movie done during that first week? And if it doesn't do too well, and an older movie that has been showing for the past 3 weeks, 2 weeks, is doing better than a new movie that has been released that weekend, when you go into the second week, you need to make a judgment call. You have to fill bums on seats. And if an older movie is doing much better than a new movie, and remember, you probably have another new movie that will come out the following week, you have to make decisions. And sometimes those decisions may not be the best for a movie that was released that weekend. I'll give you an example. There was a movie in Ilorin that I gave 3 shows, all primetime shows. That's between 3 and 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And at the end of the day, we only had 5 customers. This was a Monday, by the way, but even with that, only 5 customers with 3 shows. You only have 15 slots or 20 slots at the most. You've given 3 to one particular movie. You still have 7 or 8 other movies to cater for, but you only get 5 customers. Throughout the whole week, you end up with 40 customers, 50 customers. Now you have to make a decision. Do I stick with 3 shows the following week, or do I drop it? Chances are you'll drop it. And depending on how well it does, you might drop it to just 1 show. Now, producers don't like that. The belief is that you haven't given the movie an opportunity to sell. Fair enough. But when you look at the data tells you a different story. And I'll give you an example. If a movie gets released and is given 3 shows, in that particular cinema I've referenced that we have in Ilorin, the seats were 100 seats per show times 3. So you've got 300 seats available. You sell 5. Throughout the whole week, you have 2,100 seats available for that movie. 3 shows every day, 7 days. 300 seats per day, 2,100. You sell 50. That 50, you still have to pay your air conditioning for the full hall, for the full 2,100 seats. So there are costs to meet. And in a situation like that, you don't have time to be favorable or unfavorable to anybody. You're thinking about how you're going to pay your bills. And so you make judgment calls. And sometimes the producers don't understand that these are the metrics that we work with in trying to get whether or not a movie is given an opportunity. Almost every movie will be given an opportunity to sell. Whether it sells depends on the movie itself. Funmi has talked about the marketing. Not every movie has the same marketing budget. And so you have a situation whereby a bigger movie with a larger marketing budget has got more eyes seeing that, possibly coming out to see that movie. And so it creates a challenge for us where you have a movie that has 3 or 4 times the marketing budget of another movie. And therefore, even in your cinema, the amount of publicity being given to your own cinema or your cinema chain is far greater than another movie. That's not a fault of ours. Neither is it a decision we make. It's the decision made by the producer and probably in conjunction with the distributor. But the effects of that decision are with the cinema, and the cinema makes its judgment call based on those things that happen. So no, we don't go ahead and favor one producer over another. We try as much as possible to be as fair as we can, but we have a limited time to make these decisions. That's why the first week is generally very important for any movie that comes out.
Right.
So
Thank you, Patrick.
it's not it's not something that we do with emotionally. It's something that we do based on the figures that we see.
Right. Right. Thank you. Michael, let me turn to you with this one. With reference to what Patrick has said, that depending on how the film performs in the first week, the decision for the second week will be made. I'm a bit curious, the agreements that the exhibitor enters into with the filmmaker, does it make room? Because if we're signing a contract together and then it's that you're going to, does that contract specify you're going to show my film under these conditions for this length of time or whatever? So how does that decision, how is that decision to this of pulling a film, how is it covered really in such agreements such that it can be done and nobody takes you to court, for instance?
Okay. First of all, we don't deal with filmmakers. We deal with the distributors.
Yes.
The distributors, in most cases, are exhibitors. Part of their company is an exhibitor, part of it, so there's Film House and there's Film One, there's Silverbird, Cinema, Silverbird Distribution, etc., etc. So everybody understands the business. And we don't make agreements based on holding people film times because everybody knows that what you're supposed to do and what you're agreeing to do is to give a film the best possible showing time because you want to give that film a chance. Everybody does. You want to see if it will do what it's supposed to do. And if it does, you continue. And if it doesn't, you might check with the distributor about the marketing. You might try to figure out, is there something about to happen before you make that adjustment? I remember very clearly one of our best filmmakers had a very poor opening, very disappointing opening a few years ago. It was Kemi Adetiba. Her blockbuster film. It didn't have a great first week. I remember speaking to her and she said, she didn't know what to do. She was almost didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to leave the house. It was such a bad opening weekend. But she doubled down on her marketing. The word of mouth on the film was excellent. And of course, we now know that film as King of Boys. But it didn't have a great opening, but it still recovered and went on to be one of the most successful films. I mean, Ladun, you probably know what the figures are, but an amazing film. And it influenced a lot of other people to start making that type of film in Nollywood, which hadn't been made before. So there's some uncomfortable truths that producers don't want to face. And the first one is if you don't understand marketing. So a lot has been said in this so far about marketing budget. It's not just about marketing budget, it's about marketing strategy. And if you know what you're doing, everything goes into your opening weekend and your opening week. I actually teach a class at the Ebonylife Creative Academy, also at the Multi-Choice Talent Factory to producers. And one of the big things I always emphasize is that just as you see in Hollywood, everything goes in, including the kitchen sink. Everything is thrown in to have a big opening weekend because that dictates what's going to happen next. Occasionally, a film will recover from a bad opening weekend, but it almost never happens. And so you have to have a strong opening weekend. Everybody looks at the numbers and they want to see, can you now keep going? And the idea is you start high and you try to keep the trail off, the decline of your film, which is inevitable. Try to keep it as flat as possible for as long as possible before time, right? So there's a science behind how you market a film. And so opening weekend, opening week, all the excitement, all the stars come out, you're doing all the meet and greets and whatever. I've had a producer complaining to me, in fact, film hadn't come out yet, and the producer was already anticipating his complaint. And he was, well, and I said, no problem. Make sure, I said, have you lined up all your meet and greets for my cinema already? And he said, oh, I better get on that. This was 2 weeks before the film was due to open. Hadn't thought about meet and greets, hadn't thought about any intensive activity for that opening weekend. That same producer later on was complaining about the very thing that we're talking about now. Meanwhile, the films that they were complaining about potentially taking their slots had been marketing for months and had intensified at the same period when they were very laid back. So there's some uncomfortable truths about how people market their films and what their expectations are. And it's not just about budget, that's part of it, but it's also about the effort that you put in, just showing up to support your film. And that's one of the things. The other thing I wanted to say, which is really important, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, and Patrick and I don't know who else was at that event yesterday. I really wanted to be there, but they told me at the very last minute, asked me to speak, and I was already committed. But I wanted to be there because I wanted to talk about this other thing that happens, which I don't know if any cinema operator said it. And it's this thing. So there's one film that does all the heavy lifting, maybe two films that do all the heavy lifting in terms of marketing for Christmas. They're bringing the audience out in their numbers. So in this case, it was Behind the Scenes was the most marketed film. Surprise, surprise, it was the most successful film. They brought up the numbers. What we saw in the cinema time and time again is people showing up for sold out movies and having nothing to watch. And then they say, okay, so when is the next showing? And you say the next showing is 2 hours later. And they say, well, that's too long. We've come all this way. And then you say, okay, there's A Very Dirty Christmas, there's Obisabi Auntie, there's this, and they pick one of them. So they'll watch that, and sometimes they'll stay to watch the movie they also came to see originally. So one of the things about the people who complain the most, they have no idea, and we have the numbers, how much they benefited from the sold out shows of the films who marketed heavily. And we've seen it. A movie was supposed to start at 7 p.m. There were 5 people in the screen. At 7 p.m., no one had bought any tickets for the film. The other film sold out. 50 people entered the screen after that, disappointed from not seeing the other film, and now saw this film. And that filmmaker who gets those 50 will believe that that was as a result of the brilliance of their film and the marketing and everything else. And it's the thing that nobody has talked about, that someone else brought out the numbers. They're already there. They need to watch something. And at Ebonylife Place, we saw this time and time again, somewhere between 30 and 50 disappointed people per show were going to see these other movies that they had not bought. The other thing, and this is the last thing I want to say about the elephant in the room, is film times. If someone tells me in October or, I don't know, March or June that they didn't get the best film time and they're really upset, I am always willing to listen. If someone tells me they didn't get the best screening time in December, somewhere around Christmas, I am not listening at all. Here's why. Everyone's on holiday. Firms are closed, schools are closed. No one has anything else to do but enjoy themselves. They have all day to watch the movies. So again, while people were complaining, I got a 5 o'clock or a 3 o'clock, you didn't give me the 7 o'clock and the 9 o'clock. And I'm saying, do you realize that Behind the Scenes sold out at 11, at 1, at 3, at 5, at 7, at 9? They sold out every day. Any time they got, they sold it out. But you are saying you didn't sell your film because you didn't get the 9 o'clock or the 7 o'clock. Make it make sense. The marketed film that everybody wanted to see sold out every hour of the day. Maybe if we opened at 9, they would have sold that out as well. Because people came to at 11 and 1 and 3 because they didn't want to face the rush at 5, 7, and 9 anyway. So again, people don't talk about these things, is the fact that screen times matter least at Christmas. It's like the only time that screen time doesn't matter. So the time when if you're going to complain at Christmas, for me, it doesn't make any sense. People will watch a movie when they want to watch a movie. They'll come out and say, oh, it's at 5, it's at 3. Great, I want to see that film. They'll come out. They came out to see Avatar at any time of day. Came out to see behind the scenes at any time of day. So, if someone else has the answer, I don't understand it, because film times didn't matter to the most popular films. So.
Right, thank you, Michael. Ladun, let me turn to you with this one. We're talking now about the popular films. Michael has indicated how the popular films, suddenly, at any time of the day, they'll come, they'll fill the hall and all of that. What happens with smaller or niche films? So how do cinemas balance commercial blockbusters with the smaller or niche films, especially during high demand periods? Is there room really for those smaller ones, which perhaps were not going to draw large crowds, but they do have their dedicated followers?
The short answer and truest answer to that is there's no balance, especially in the high season. And again, this is not something that is peculiar to Nigeria. It is something that it's a global thing. The most marketed films, the most popular films will get the prime showtime. This is the reason why, if you are not on that, if you cannot give that energy to your film, then you really shouldn't be there. You should go to the other areas where you can shine and make a name for yourself. And these are conversations that I have had with producers, and they have walked out of the room angrily. So, and it's one that unfortunately I cannot be more specific, but I've had conversations where I need to come out December and I'll be like, do you know what? I don't have December, but I have June 12th. And I think that I don't know any film that is coming here. We can do a marketing thing. Sometimes I would even say, I would put, like, as Filmone, because we can make that decision and say we will back whatever it is that you're doing and put some marketing push towards the film that is recoupable. And I remember the last person I said this to says, I don't know who you think you are. You don't know what you're saying, and walked out of the room. True life story. Wow. She was very upset that I had the audacity to tell her that she shouldn't release in December. And I'm sure anyway, I'll just pack that there. But my point is, these are things that happen. If you were to come to me and say it, I will be truthful. We've released big producers. We do that every year. We release mid-tier producers, and by categorizing them that way, I mean based on how much they have made at the box office in the past. And we have done new filmmakers. I have a quota of new filmmakers, even from my board, that I have to do every year. So I'm not only asked to do my demand, or my job is not only to do the big producers, it's to also widen it, because at the end of the day, the kings today are not going to be kings forever. So you need to also find the next kings and the next queens, etc. And that is what I try to do, but balance in that regard. So it's not 50-50. It is whatever my model is, but there's space for all of that. But if I am going to put a film that is tiny, or a film that doesn't have as much marketing, or a film that the producer is just trying out in December, I'm doing you a disservice. So I will tell you, and I'll be upfront, you shouldn't do this. This is not a thing that you should do. This is not a thing that I would suggest. Let's try out other seasons and build and work our way towards when people would now say, I'm coming because it's a Ladun production. I'm coming because Michael has done this. Like, you need to build that thing, and that is, again, it's not peculiar to us. When I was looking and listening to all the chatter online this December, and everything was like, can only happen in Nigeria. And I'm like, actually, no. We don't have enough cinemas. The main problem is we don't have enough cinemas. We have so many films and so many creative people doing this work. But the problem is not the scheduling. There's absolutely nothing wrong with how the films are being scheduled at all. You would do it if it was your business. You would do it if you had to pay for diesel. You would do it if you had to pay for lamps, where the used lamps are over $30,000. Ask anybody. So, sorry, not used lamps, used projectors are over $30,000. So you would do that if you had to make those sort of decisions. You would make a decision that makes sure that you can even break even. Let's start there, and then make a profit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Funmi wants to say something.
Yes, Funmi, please go ahead.
Yes, I want to add, I was going to say something before I forget. Just like what Ladun said, I remember Black Panther 1 was released February 16, 2018. It wasn't peak season, it wasn't meant to be a blockbuster. It wasn't the right time for any studio. In fact, the distributors, it wasn't tagged a blockbuster. Now, Black Panther changed the trajectory of every, will I say, African-themed Hollywood title. It sets a different standard in the industry. It was a movie that represented 10 African countries. It was a movie for Black History Month in America. It changed everything for the industry that it is today. So if you say the right time, there's never a right time. It's just like music. You never know which music will make Billboard or top 10 or number 1 or something. You just ensure as a filmmaker, you give every product you release your best bet. You can't be too lazy. You can't feel you've done too much. You just ensure you do the right thing, and let's the audience. So the right time, when I look at Black Panther 1, like in Ghana, the first 4 days we had 16,000 people. It's still a wow effect. And when you think about it, how we worked and the promotions we did, is we knew that we needed to make it work. So, December, people, there are other seasons in the year. So I agree with Ladun on that.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think partly want to take some of the blame for the session with December, because people who are much more experienced than me actually tell me that there was a time when nobody wanted to release their films in December because they were afraid of the big Hollywood blockbuster that always came, Star Wars, those kinds of movies. And so I think it was, Landon, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was August was the preferred period for people to release their Nollywood films, but it was not December. Stay away from December, you'll get crushed by whatever the Hollywood film was. And so why I take partly the blame is because I was part of the team. I was head of marketing at the time for the wedding party. And it was that first December blockbuster that defied all expectations, 3 times the previous highest film. And that somehow created this religion of December releasing. You're not going to make any money unless you release in December. And Funmi pointed out, somehow Black Panther didn't break the spell. There's been 2 huge Black Panther movies. Neither of them were released in December. One of our biggest blockbusters that surprised everybody was Barbie. When was Barbie? I don't remember what time of year Barbie was. It certainly
July. It was in the summer.
Yeah, it was
For
July.
summer.
And in July became August, I think, and ran almost into September, right? Nobody cares. If they want to see a movie, they'll come out to see a movie. The only difference between December or Easter and any other holiday is that people just have more time. And that's back to that film time thing. What makes a blockbuster bigger at December is because they're not just coming after work in the evening or after school or coming on the weekend because they're busy during the week. They come every single day from morning to night. That's what makes a December film bigger, but it only makes a big film bigger. It doesn't make a small film that wasn't marketed, that nobody knows about it. December doesn't make you big. It allows anyone who made a good film and marketed it well to capitalize on all those extra time slots that people can come out to at any time of day. So it's almost like we've gotten it backwards. It's this idea that there's magic dust in December that gets sprinkled on your film and automatically makes it successful. And the truth is, December rewards people who made a good film, planned very well, and marketed very well. Imagine someone, like Funmi Akindele has a December slot for her film and does the most marketing. If there was magic dust, why did she bother? Why didn't she just release it and let December do its magic? So it's just this weird thing. December only became a religion from 2016 with the wedding party. That's where the obsession started.
Right. Thank you, Michael. Well, Patrick, let me turn to you with a question from Alex. Alex has posed quite a few questions here. I think some of them have already been responded to in a way, but we'll just take them all the same. Alex says, if my film makes a total of 1 billion naira at the end of the cinema's run, how much comes to me? Comes to A, me, the producer, B, my distributor, C, the exhibitor/cinema, and then taxes. I think, Patrick, you had already indicated to us the percentages, 50, 45, 40, depending on the weeks. Okay, but I will just add the second question of Alex. We'll take them together, if you don't mind. Who should handle and pay for publicity and marketing? The producer, the exhibitor, the distributor? I think Funmi and Ladun had already made comments along those lines. But Patrick, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, the sharing formula is clear, 50, 45, 40. I think the part of the question where how much does the producer get actually depends on a number of factors. One of those factors is how well does the movie do over the course of its screening. For a movie, for example, that is in the cinemas 1 week, 2 weeks only, you'll get a different amount. Or for a movie that stays the course and does 13, 14 weeks. And the other factor that sometimes has an impact on it is the time of year. And I'll give you an example. If we take Funmi Akindele's movie, now, even though she released it on the 12th of December, I think Funmi can confirm that she actually made a lot more money on the second or third week than she did in the first week, simply because that movie fell between Christmas and New Year, where most of her customers actually came out. And at that point, the movie had gotten close to third week, which would have put it started off at 55, it would have put it at around 50 or 45%. But she made more money. And so it all depends on these factors that might determine how much money you end up making. But let's take a regular one. So you release your movie, there's no factors such as Christmas influencing the numbers. First week, you're entitled to 50%. You collect it goes 50-50. Second week, the exhibitor takes 55%, you take 45%. And the third week, exhibitor takes 60%. In all of these weeks, you're going to pay withholding tax, you're going to pay VAT. And then there are some other factors that come to play. For example, we take into account the average cost of the movie, but depending on where the movie sells, if the movie is very popular in Ebonylife, but not popular in Viva Cinemas Ilorin, there's a price differential. You make more money from Ebonylife in terms of the cost of a ticket than you do in Ilorin over the cost of a ticket. But if it's the other way around, and the movie is more popular in Ilorin than it is in Ebonylife, your average ticket price is going to go down because people in Ilorin, Oshogbo, Akure are the ones watching it, not the people in IMAX, Ebonylife, Filmhouse Surulere, they're not the ones watching it. So sometimes these factors do come into play in terms of how much money you end up making. But one thing that doesn't change is the amount of tax you're going to pay, the sharing formula you're going to get, and all these are then calculated and the producers are then paid. Of course, the distributors may have a commission, and if they do, they will also take their commission out of the money that's being paid out. One of the areas that we at the cinema exhibitors have often tried to talk to producers about is we need to approach government on this issue of taxation. Because if I'm paying a huge amount for withholding tax and VAT, it's going to eat into my profit margin because both parties will pay it. So at the end of the day, you're paying about 15% of the gross amount recovered as your tax. And so we have been recommending that producers need to get together and we need to try and talk to government as a body and say, look, how can we reduce the tax level or if possible, get some tax holidays so that there can be some benefit that can be reinvested in the industry itself from the money that we're making from the customers. But that is currently a challenge. And both parties, whether they like it or not, must pay the tax. And the tax is often deducted at source. So the producer will only see the tax, the withholding tax, for example, is deducted at source, and the producer will only get the money after the withholding tax has been deducted. So these are factors that come into play. I mean, for the big movies where they get 55% and they do very well in the first 2 weeks, yes, the producers might benefit from that. But at the end of the day, most movies tend to fall within the category of 50 to 40%. And by the time you take the sharing formula into account, you take the taxes into account, the producer might go away with anything between 30 and 40%. Generally, it's not going to be more than that, because if you take the taxes away from the average they're collecting, they're going to end up with around 37, 38% of the revenue generated at the cinemas. So that's where we currently are, but I'm sure going forward, there are going to be discussions with how we can ensure that more money comes to the producers so they can invest. But some of this has to come from government.
Thank you, Patrick. Funmi, let me turn to you with the other question that Alex has put forward, because you already spoke about, or you mentioned at least the need for producers to come with the story, not the finished product. And he says, what are the chances of an independent producer with finished products or distributors and exhibitors as against the same producer working with a distributor/exhibitor ab initio from the stage of the script?
Sorry, like I said, okay, from the exhibitors parts, coming, like you say, a producer coming up to us with the finished products, right?
No, he says, what are the chances if the person comes at the very beginning with the script before making the thing?
Well, we've had situations in Ghana where we were approached based on films that had done well, the kind of cast that they could use for some of their movies. So we've had those type of conversations in Ghana where they actually really come to us to ask questions. Why did he make a lot of money at the box office? What they could do right the second time, and we've been able to guide some of them to do better, basically with our experience. Like I said, in coming to the Nollywood Nigerian sector, that isn't something that we have been used to. We get the complaints, but the solutions, I haven't seen anyone, or we don't have an independent distribution kind of sector. We have more people that work with distributors. So really, I think the major problems that I see we have is some people are set, they have in their mind what they want to do. So even if you guide them, they're already set in their ways. They already have a plan, and anything you say isn't something that they would want to explore. They feel that this person did it, that person did that, and there's this notion of, okay, should I dance more? Should I do meet and greets? When to do the meet and greets? Do I really need to come? And all that. Just like Michael said, somebody had complaints already planned before the movie premiere. So most times when they come out like, oh, how can I beat Funke or now Toyin and all that, you're forgetting that Funke has been a brand for over 15 years. Do you understand? She has built a followership, so she has. So are you going to start and wait for another 15 years to meet up with her? So people don't understand that. So really, the thing is, would they listen, or do they just want to just make the money at the box office, and their return on investment should be on one project? Some people don't understand, aside the cinema, there's a whole different value chain that you can explore, airlines, so many things. And that's why I said the importance of a distributor is so key to every product, no matter what. With a smaller budget, yes, you can do independent title and all that, but coming to us, really, we just want to make money. We're like a supermarket. We just want to display your product, ensure that you get a good positioning, and we sell. But it should be, we do a market research. Which supermarket should I send it to? Should I go to Boku, ShopRite, and all that? So that's how it is. So I think for me personally, if you want to scale up, you need to be ready to talk to a distributor. So there's a limit to what I can do, or what we as exhibitors can do. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Funmi. Ladun, I think the last two questions of Alex come very nicely to you, because he's talking here things about distribution. And of course, the first question is one that we hear come up all the time. Can independent producers ever get fair deals in all ramifications, acceptance, scheduling, timing, duration, publicity, etc., in the hands of exhibitors who are themselves now effectively into big-time distribution and film production? And the second one, finally, are there guarantees that after the cinema runs, my distributor will help push and get deals for me on streaming platforms, Netflix, Amazon, etc., and other revenue stream platforms?
The answer is 100%. I think that sometimes bad news travels fast, and when things are not good, or the bad gist of some sort, if I can call it that, it travels fast. But you have to understand that if you continue to believe that it's at your own peril, because a lot of people that are saying all of these bad things have benefited from the good things that are happening. When you say independent filmmakers, can they make money? A lot of the people that are making money are independent filmmakers, whether it's Funke, whether it's Toyin, whether it's Miwa Demola, whether it's Timini, whether it's, let me even look for somebody that is not whether it's what's her name, Nora Wolo of Red Circle. Even with the bad press in a few of the cinemas, she still made money. The film is got on cover actually yesterday. So yes, you make money. It just has to be the right film. I have just spoken about that earlier, a few minutes ago, where I actually have a remit to work with new producers as well as established producers. I just need to make sure that it commercially works for us as a business, because then that's how you remain a going concern. If you only work with new producers that don't, imagine a cinema that says, okay, no problem, I'm only going to work with people that have never had an outing before. That I've never had an outing before, have never made money at the box office. I guarantee you that cinema will not open next year, because then how do you pay for anything that you're doing? But balance is what it is that the business thinks it is. So you're not able to share what balance is, but you want to be able to say, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. Would you get good deals? You have to understand that I only make money as a distributor or as an investor in a film when your film makes money. There's no supernatural way that I make money as well at all. Your film has to make money for me to make my distribution fee. Your film has to make money for me to make my share of the cinema fee. Your film has to make money for me to, honestly, for me to do anything. So if I take a film and I say that I'm going to distribute it, it's because I've seen a potential in it. There's some films that I have taken to release in cinema, but my target is not a cinema film. My target is the streamers, because I think I'll make money. And I'll give you an example. The Herd. We released The Herd in November of last year. And I remember it came to us as from a script, and it was one of the most beautifully written scripts I had ever read. But if you know anything about cinema, you know that anything that talks about headsmen, and it's not what people want to see in cinema. People will tell you that life is already hard. They come to the cinemas to escape. So you don't want to come and see your realities of what's happening and then now spend 7,000, 8,000 naira to watch what is already keeping you awake at night. But it was such a beautiful script that I was like, there's no way we're not getting on this. But when I decided that we were going to invest in it, I wasn't thinking about cinema at all. This was going to be something that I was going to pitch straight to the streamers. We made this decision before the whole streamers wars came to an end. Then the film was made, and no one was really taking films directly to streamers. So I have this film that at that point we had invested in. I was sitting on it for almost 2 years, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to release this thing in cinema and then give it a chance to say, okay, I've done cinema, it's done this thing, and I'm going to take it to streamers, and it worked. So it was Daniel's debut. People really liked etc. But then that's another example of an independent filmmaker that literally came to us with a script. Granted, he was a public figure, but the actual key EPs on that were not even film people at all. These were people that just invested in a script that they saw, such as what Filmone did as well. So would you get the opportunity? Yes, but we cannot sort of sit on Twitter and think that that's where deals are being done. A lot of the thing always makes me laugh. A lot of the people that are on Twitter saying you've done this, you've done that, I promise you they're in my DMs. I'm not even kidding you. They are saying, when are we going to do the next film? When are you going to when I want this date for my film? I want this date for that film. And then on Twitter, you people are the bad guys. So it's just something that you need to know, that it's the gay. All of us, I always say, all of us are acting film, especially in Nigeria. We're all acting. All of us, we are all, let me not mention any actors, we're all acting. So the moment you understand that it's not real life is what happens when you come to the office, when we sit down, when we draft what it is that we're going to do, and then we make money when we want to make money, and you come back. Because you have to think about it. If it is so bad, why do you guys keep coming back? And then come back and complain again? How bad could it really be? Everyone should be on YouTube. Why are people coming to cinema if it's that bad? So again, it's being able to just sort of sift it and get the information for yourself. Take responsibility for your future. Take responsibility for, if you want to create this thing. I was saying it yesterday when we launched our yearbook, that people need to stop, especially if you're at the start of your career, you need to stop doing passion projects and actually start by doing what people want to see in cinemas. Don't say, I'm a filmmaker and I think that what I'm going to do is an anthropology and that people are going to watch it in cinema. No, check. How has that performed? I've done yearbooks for 7 years and I've put every film that has worked. Why don't you start out with still your creative juices, but with films that actually have worked based on data, not based on what I have said, based on data that is publicly available. And then let's start there. Don't make this your story about what you have read online or seen online. We're all acting. So
I like that. We're all actors, which is true anyhow. So, Michael, let me turn to you with a question from Oluwatomilola. He says, in Nigeria, well, he's also giving us a series of questions we can take. In Nigeria, how come we do for release? Marty Supreme is going to VOD/digital next week, and it was never in our cinemas. We get a similar thing with musicals. For example, Hamilton, In the Heights, next to normal, but have seen local successes with musicals like The Greatest Showman and Wicked. And I will just give you, well, the next question I think will better go to Patrick. So, Michael, do you have any response for him?
So if I get this right, he's asking about the successful musicals that don't make it to the cinema. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, he says that there's some films which are successful elsewhere in other places, but in our cinemas they don't come. So he gave an example of Marty Supreme, which he says is going to VOD but was never in our cinema. So why don't such films come to our cinemas?
Okay, maybe ultimately the distributors can answer that. But what I'll say that as an exhibitor and someone who understands the film market, I guess I'm going to answer for the distributors. They are going to take films that they know will resonate with a Nigerian audience. And Nigerian audiences don't like to see certain films in numbers. You know, it's that, I mean, for example, as a person, as a film fan, there are a lot of films that are released internationally that I want to see. But at the same time, I know that if they came to my cinema, that the screens would be empty, because I know that I don't represent the majority of people who watch film in Nigeria. So, and even if some, maybe 2 or 3 cinemas might have a, you know, a decent showing for a couple of weeks, it's not really worth a distributor's time to release a film that's only going to play in maybe 2 or 3 cinemas on the island for maybe a week to a reasonably, you know, nice sort of Ikoyi crowd or whatever, and then fade away. There's not that much of an appetite. Since I've come to Nigeria, I've been in Nigeria 15 years. I've watched more action films in the last 15 years in terms of Hollywood movies than I've watched in my whole life, because that's generally what's available and that's what sells. I did an analysis. I think the distributors can back me up. In any given year, maybe 1 or 2 out of all of the nominated Oscar films play in Nigeria. Watch the Oscars as a Nigerian. Tell me how many films you recognize as films that are shown in Nigerian cinemas. Almost none, because most of them are very clever dramas. And Nigerians are not fans of clever dramas from Hollywood. But give us a Marvel film, an action film, a big thriller. That's what Nigerians want to see in large numbers. And that's, you know, it's whatever the audience wants. That's what gets shown, and then that's what plays. And sometimes it doesn't work, because we've seen recently that quite a few of the big Marvel films haven't worked. Big anticipation, huge IP, and then disappointing at the box office. And that's something that Nollywood producers should take note of, is that when there's a big Hollywood title, a Marvel film, or some other kind of big tentpole film, is that we give them the best screen times. And if they fail in week 1 or week 2, they also get moved to the less attractive time slots. There's not a Nollywood film, and you know, sometimes titles are just disappointing, and you have to move them along and make way for something else that's going to sell you more tickets. So, yeah, the audience wants what the audience wants, and that's generally what.
Thank you, Michael. Patrick, you're involved in distribution as well, so I will turn to you with this one. In line with with reference to what Michael has said, that what we see is, well, the distributors choose based on what they think the audience prefers. Of course, one author has indicated that distribution is a site of power, in that sense, that it determines the films we see and when and how we see them. Now, is there a possibility, I mean, that the distributor could also play a role in, you could say, training the audience? Because many times people have not had the chance to see those films in order to say, okay, well, I have a new taste I can develop here, for instance. So does the distributor also take things like that into consideration, that there could be, it may not have been tested, but perhaps there's a potential here that this could work in this market? If I would just give you that, and let me add the other part of the question from Oluwatomi Lola, which has to do with something you were very closely involved in, because it's linked also into determining what the audience wants, data. And he's asking, what are the challenges to providing more comprehensive data consistently? Cian's last report was April 2nd, 2025. It could improve transparency and help marketing if we had box office data broken down by location, so we begin to understand audience tastes and attitudes. Okay, so that is on the one hand. And then, of course, the other part that I asked, using this data also to expose the audience to other things. Is that what the possibility of that is?
Okay, let me try and answer the first question to the best of my knowledge. A few years ago, I think about just under 7, 8 years ago, if you look around Nigeria, or take Lagos and the Southwest, for example, there's almost a church on every street or thereabouts. We tried the introduction of religious movies, even tried releasing those religious movies during a period like Easter. And what we found was that you had sold out halls for every other movie apart from the religious movie. So as much as we would want to train the public to try and watch certain types of movies, you're also working within a time frame where you can actually make them watch the movie. So if I put a religious movie during the Easter period, and I'm selling everything else out apart from the religious movie, during the next Easter, I won't show religious movies.
Right.
Or if I do, I'll give them much less time frame, space. So it's often a challenge, despite the fact that we have churches all over the place. It's a challenge getting Nigerians to pay to watch a religious movie. Now, we went to the churches and we asked them, "Oh, have you guys seen this movie? Have you guys seen that movie?" And they would say, "Yes, we've seen this movie." But the crucial thing here is you then ask them, "Where did you see it?" "I saw it on YouTube. I saw it online." This same movie showed at the cinemas. They didn't see it at the cinemas. They watched it online or they watched it on YouTube. So it's a bit of a challenge. The same applies when you look at musicals. I know there are some Nigerians who are trying to release musicals now, but there's also that challenge because in general, most musical movies that get released in Nigeria have a limited audience. And in some cases, it's so limited that it might not be commercially viable. Oscar movies. We stopped showing Oscar movies now because they just don't sell. A few years ago, 10 years ago, we're showing Oscar movies. An Oscar movie would come out, it would get great publicity in Nigeria. This is a movie that has won the Oscars. Come and watch it. Nigerians did not want to see an Oscar movie, possibly because of the genre that often is attached to such successful Oscar movies. So now, very rarely would a distributor go out of their way to schedule an Oscar movie unless there's something about it that they believe the Nigerian audience wants to see. So these are often the challenges. And it's not just the Oscars. Take the Emmys or take any other major award ceremony. The movies that win don't necessarily sell in Nigeria. And time over the years has proven that. So no matter how much space we give it, it doesn't sell. And what happens is you tend to reduce the space you give it until at some point you probably don't even show it at all. It's not what we want to do, but it's what the customers are telling us. This is the taste they have. This is what they would pay their 7,000 or 5,000 naira to watch. And we, as the platform to show those movies, have to go with what our customers are ready to pay for. And that is often the challenge that we're faced with. So as a distributor, the distributor has to make that decision. And sometimes it's challenging trying to tell producers that this great idea that you have, this fantastic idea, even though it's well produced, may not necessarily sell. Because like Michael rightly pointed out, the movies I might enjoy watching is not what my customer base wants to see. And they're the bottom line. They determine. There are very, very many movies that I have liked in the cinema and they have not sold well. So we make decisions based on what our customers, what we believe our customers want to see. And there's we don't have as much leeway as people think we have in trying to create a customer base for a particular type of movie. And as Michael said, most of our customers are between the ages of 18 and 35.
Right.
And that age group, you have to take it into account. 60% female, 18 to 35. You have no choice but to look at that data. And that data will then form how you make your judgments on what movies you distribute and whether or not cinemas will actually take those movies or will give it good show times. But having said that, there are some Nigerian musical movies that I loved and they actually did well. Ayinla, for example, was a fantastic success and it did really well. So there are always exceptions.
Of course. But just to take the other aspect of Oluwatomilola's question, there's the challenge of providing more comprehensive data on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's right. Currently, I think Filmone does a yearbook, and I believe they've just launched the 2025 yearbook for everyone. So there's quite a lot of data in the 2025 yearbook. Whether or not people use that yearbook properly is a different matter entirely. But the amount of data that is actually available in the yearbook, it's quite comprehensive. So personally, what I would encourage producers or people who are interested in finding out more about the cinema, go to the yearbook, have a good look at it, see whether there's any information you could use. And if there's information that you think should be there and isn't there, they can always approach Filmone or come to the Cinema Exhibitors Association and say, look, we have this project we're working on, we're looking for this type of data, and we'd be willing to help. But as you can see from the yearbook that Filmone have provided, there's such a lot of data that we can't put that out every week out into the public. The data will just get lost. So what we tend to encourage is that those people who have an interest in a particular area or in a particular type of data that they want, approach the Cinema Exhibitors Association, talk to your distributor. They also have access to most of the data that is provided by the cinemas, and they'll be able to help them. So I think the first starting point would be take what we've put out there, look at it, and if there's anything else from that you believe you need that isn't there, then come to us at the Cinema Exhibitors or go to Filmone or any other major distributor, talk to them. Silverbird are there. They're all there. So you could talk to any one of them and they'll be able to provide that information for you. We are not keeping the information away from the public. It's just that there's so much, we can't put everything out on a week-by-week basis. So what we simply do is put out what the cinemas do every week, or what the movies that are released in the cinemas do every week.
I think that is part of his question, because I think we all find the data released by the Exhibitors Association very, very useful. But he's pointing out here that the last report of CIAN, for instance, was April 2nd, 2025. So he's asking, why is the data not coming out as consistently as it used to? Because I think previously, like you have said, it comes out on a week-by-week basis on the themes that are in the cinemas. So that's, I think, is part of his question.
Okay, I'll take a look into that and try and ensure that they're brought out every week. They should be brought out every week. Unfortunately,
yes.
I haven't
It's
followed
tremendously
up with
useful,
them,
yes.
I'll
Okay.
do that immediately.
Yes, it's tremendously useful. At least I have found it very useful in terms of research. Fumi, let me turn to you with a common question that people ask all the time. Why are movie tickets so expensive? This is still also Oluwatomi Lola's question. Why are movie tickets so expensive? I understand inflation and rising costs, but are ways to make movies more accessible being explored? A trip to the cinema sets you back 10K plus, but we could have film passes that allow you see more movies for a lower price. That's an unfair question I'm giving to you, really. But please go ahead for me.
I think it's a difficult question to
I know.
actually ask because we have different types of cinemas and different types of locations and different types of ratings. For us at Silverbird Cinemas, we try to understand and consider our clients, our target audience. And if I speak generally as the sector has changed where we have the VIPs, we have the regular tickets, we have the blockbuster rates, we have there's something for everybody. It just depends on what you want, when you want it, and where you want to watch your movie. I think I have to be very careful, because everybody is offering products for different clienteles and different prices based on which location you're actually going to watch the movie. So Michael is going to rescue me here. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not so afraid to speak about these things. I pretty much speak about anything. Look, first of all, price is relative, okay? In terms of what people can afford and what people want to spend. And it's really more a question of whether you're getting value for your money. I don't think it's a price conversation at all. I think it's about value for money. So if you are paying for your ticket and your cinema experience is a wonderful experience, I don't think anyone worries about the money. I think if you pay, let's say, for example, you pay 8,500 or whatever it is in VI at one of the cinemas where you get a great experience, then it's fine. Someone else might spend 5,000 or 6,000 in another cinema somewhere else and get a horrible experience, and they don't think that 5,000 or 6,000 is worth it. Now, 5,000 or 6,000 is cheaper than 8,500. But that the person is dissatisfied with that cheaper price. So it's not really price, it's value. People generally, as long as they can afford something, don't mind what they're paying for as long as they're getting very good value for their money. So that's the first thing that I would say. And if you think about cinema in other countries, average price for a cinema ticket in the UK is between 15,000 to 30,000 naira, if you do the calculation, if you do at the current exchange rate. In the US, it's something like about 15,000 to 25,000 average ticket prices in the USA. So, and that range is based on, the bigger fancy theaters and so on. And by the time you look at ticket prices in the Middle East and the Far East, where they have a much fancier offering, you can lie on a bed and watch your film and all of that sort of thing, the prices are even higher. So I think Nigeria has done very well in keeping ticket prices at a level that most people can afford it. And if you compare it with other ways of going out and being entertained, a cinema date, ask any guy who's strapped, a cinema date is a cheap date still, compared to going out to a fancy restaurant, spending maybe 100K on dinner for two. You can get, popcorn and drinks and a cinema ticket, probably all within 30K, and hopefully that will help you to score, on your date, right? But it's relative, and value for money, I think, is certainly something that can still be had at the cinema if the cinema experience is great. And it's not just a movie; it's the customer service, it's the ambiance, it's the environment, it's the availability of food and drink, It's the comfort, are the ACs working? Is everything working? And that's part of the experience. People want to feel like they've been out for a special evening, not just a movie that they could have seen at home. It has to be more than it's value. That's really all it is.
Great, thank you, Michael. Well, Ladun, let me pass this one to you because it mentions your name. Shout out to Ladun and her team. This is from Anthony. Anthony, who says, I am glad to have some of the big names here. My question, still on data he's talking about. My question is on having a more transparent system in data. We're in a system where producers don't tell how much the budget of a movie is, so we don't know if the movie broke even. Also Filmone, shout out to Ladun and her team, gives us a report via ComScore. UK cinema tickets report to one independent public body, BFI, that publishes the scores. US box office is a real-time data stream to analytics firms. Can we have a transparent system that allows real-time data to flow directly from cinemas to independent analysts? So in real time, researchers and journalists like myself can easily get access to information that will allow investors from abroad to read and understand what we have.
Okay. Hi, Anthony. Thank you for the shout out. I'll take it. Thank you. My answer to that question would be you would have to pay for it. So everyone actually reports to an international body right now, and it's called ComScore, which is where we get our information from. Internationally, whether it's all the box office analysts or folks that want to plug into all those things actually have to pay for it. So it's something that you then would now have to do a cost benefits. Is the payment worth what it is that I'm getting out of it? Because again, you're a journalist, so that's work. Alternatively, I know that the CIAN website does report, I believe it's twice weekly. CIAN is the Cinema Exhibitor Association of Nigeria. They do report on the Instagram page. I believe it's twice weekly, one on Monday, which shows the box office report. Oh, sorry, the weekend box office, and then on Friday, which shows a full week. Cinema Week is Friday till Thursday. So they do those reports. So there are a bunch of independent analysts online who track these things and then would have weekly or monthly reports. But I do have a distributor access and, well, the cinema executive access to these platforms. Surely I can't share that because, again, that now becomes privileged information. But I can push you to the right direction, which is reaching out to Numero, reaching out to ComScore, and trying to get the actual analyst logging to stuff like that. So that way you're able to help. Otherwise, you can check our yearbook.
Great. Thank you, Ladun. Thank you for the offer as well. Well, Joy here is concerned about the amount of time it takes for payments to be made. And she's asking, please, what is the legal timeline for the cinema exhibitor to pay the producer or distributor? And in a subsequent comment, she's asking, is there a sanction in place for cinemas that delay payments or don't pay back after reconciliation? Funmi, you're smiling. Let me turn to you with this one then.
Well, I think it's I would say this should be from the distributor, basically, because they represent the producers. And we already have agreements in place per movies, and we already have agreeable payment terms. Most times, people think after every week, they need to every day or every week when the distributors release how much a producer had made on a movie, they get paid immediately. That's not what happens, So we I manage cinema, so we need to pull out the cash, we need to do reconciliations, we need to do a lot of things before we just make a payment. But usually, I'm sure it's 45 days, 30 days. It depends on every movie has an agreement, so it depends on it case by case basis. So I won't really say, this is the standard. It depends on or when and how reconciliations are done. And because invoices, I know distributors send invoices, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, and sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. You know, when you're dealing with cash, not cash, when you're dealing with payments, you need to ensure that you're not saying 20 or 20,000 is 2 million and all that, you know. So there are a lot of, it's a very dicey, well, I say I'm trying to be very careful in my response. If I say 7 days, somebody goes to Ladun and say, but Silverbird says 7 days. If I say 30 days, but you know, so it depends. It really depends, but usually not between 30 and 45 days.
Thank you.
Depends.
Thank you, Funmi. I think Ladun wants to add something to that.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, yeah, she's right. It's between 30, we even put it at 60 days because, yeah, not only dealing with Silverbird that, would, pay you on time, you are dealing with a bunch of independent cinemas as well that maybe also have a longer reconciliation process. Once you reconcile with the cinemas internally as distributors, we would then now reconcile as well to say, okay, is everything where it's supposed to be at the sharing terms? Because again, different cinemas have different sharing terms. So have I assigned the different sharing terms per cinema? Have I taken the right distribution fee? If I have put in marketing towards the film and I have the first right of recoup, have I recouped it accurately? Do I have proof and marketing? Because we would send like the proof of everything that the money has been spent on as well. Have I put on that together? So I would say 30 to 60 days from when you get the message, from when you get the message that your film has left cinema. I just wanted to add again that this is not peculiar to Nigeria. This is exactly the same thing that happens in the UK, in the US, and in Canada. These are the three countries that I have distributed to, and it's the exact same process. After the film leaves cinema, they will take their time in reconciling, because what you don't want to do is pay somebody 10,000 naira and say, oh, sorry, we made a mistake, it's supposed to be 7,000 naira. Can you refund 3K? I mean, that is like the height of unprofessionalism. So say 30 to 60 days. If it takes more than that, then, you should then now be asking questions of why is it taking, people should provide reasons as to why it's taking longer than the 60 days after your film leaves cinema.
Okay, thank you. We'll just take a last question here from Olurant. I see your hand, Michael. I was going to give you this question, so maybe you can take your comment and then this question, please, if you don't mind. Olurant is asking, the marketing and distribution of films abroad has a connection to film festivals. There's a disconnect between festivals, marketing and distribution, as well as cinema exhibition in Nigeria. What can be done to make the relationship closer? And over to you, Michael, please.
So it's difficult because if you understand the role of festivals are there often to promote the kinds of films that probably don't do well in cinemas. And in fact, I know several filmmakers, when they make a film, I'm sure Ladun can back me up on this, sometimes it's a festival film. It's a film that's going to be creatively and artistically designed for a discerning audience that will appreciate your film, that your film can go around the world. And, if it was in the cinemas in Nigeria, people would fall asleep for the same film that other people are raving about in Venice and all around the world, right? Sundance and everywhere else. So it's often two different markets. People don't make blockbuster films to go to festivals. So it's very hard to reconcile the two if you understand it that way. Personally, I think for films that go to festivals, I would love for us to be able to show them in our cinemas, maybe on a limited run, maybe 1 week, and maybe have a nice director screening where the director comes and shows, and you have an invited audience, people who would want to see this film. I think that's the correct way for doing it. And Ladun talked earlier on about The Herd. The Herd was not going to probably be a big film, but I saw a trailer and straight away I said, got to do a director screening of this film because I wanted to highlight it as something people should watch. And why was it important to make this type of film? Because I've always said Nigerians need to make more films that are relevant to what happens in Nigeria. And so as soon as I saw that, I thought, put my money where my mouth is. I'll support this as a director screening. In fact, I did the question. I did the interviews myself on stage. I was so passionate about it. And again, she was correct. I felt that, yes, it would do quite well in the cinemas, and it did. But I knew it would do better on streaming. And it seems to have sat in the number 3 position for, I don't know, weeks and weeks and weeks now. And has done very, very well. Very, very, very proud of Daniel as a filmmaker. So, but again, most filmmakers I talk to understand when they're making a festival film and when they're making a commercial film. Mo Budu, who owns our cinema, I remember, of course, she made, at one point, the top 3 biggest movies in Nollywood before Funke's films took over those spots. But when she made that film with Idris Elba, Dust to Dreams, that short film, it was specifically being made for festivals. She wasn't trying to do her usual box office thing, even though Seal and Idris Elba and all these people were involved. So it was a very specific project for a very specific audience. So as long as we understand that, I don't think we should be worried about trying to reconcile those two things. It's almost 2 different worlds.
Right. Thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks a lot. Our time is up now. So we'll just go the rounds. If you want to each say one final word briefly. Let me start with Patrick. Any final words before we cut this up?
I think all I would say is that when you look at the cinema circuit, I mean, the exhibition, there's such a lot of scope for growth. When I look at Funke Akindele's movie that did, that's doing 2.5 billion, total attendance is just over 500,000. So the scope within the cinema market is great. And every day, one of the things that we often think about is how do we expand on this market? Because it's unlimited. We have over 200 million people. And yet, the highest selling movie does it with just 500,000. Now, many local governments have more than 500,000 people. But how do we encourage more people to come to the cinema and actually pay to watch these movies? Because if we can, and you can get 2 million people or 3 million people to watch a blockbuster, you're talking 5, 6, 7 billion naira from that alone, from one movie. Already the cinema circuit makes, I think it's about 16 billion we made last year. So the potential for growth within that market is huge. And I believe that if we continue doing what we're doing, there's a great possibility that we might get to a day when we'll be talking about a Nigerian movie that does 10 billion in the cinema market. And just like Michael pointed out, while that movie is making money, there'll be people coming into the cinema and dragging other movies along with them. And we'll find not just now where we have a 2.5 and a 1 billion movie, we might end up with a 10 billion and the second best-selling movie is making 3 or 4 billion. This will help our productions and will help ensure that more and more better quality movies come into the cinemas. And
Right.
I'm just excited about our market.
We should be. It has potential, like you say. Thank you. Funmi, any last words? Or rather, any final words, not last words, final words.
Well, for me, to the aspiring filmmaker is, I think just focus on ensuring that your product is the best one you are planning on making, and you'll definitely one day break box office. So that's for me to aspiring filmmaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladun, any final words?
Hello? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I mean, final points, it will be, I think I will just go with Mr. Patrick's point, where the possibilities are endless. In terms of look, 500,000 people for one film. Number one, that is a big, big thing. If she can finally touch that number, which I believe she would. I haven't checked the numbers recently, but I think that the possibilities are endless with films. With the numbers of cinemas we have, 922, being able to do 2.8 million, it's okay, but in Etiosa local government that were 20 million, well, in Lagos, sorry, the 20 million people. So if you think about it, we haven't even scratched the surface. And for me, that is what is exciting, is that being here at this time, doing our part, but also thinking about what 10 years would be like. And hopefully we will be able to say, this is where we were in 2026. And this is where we are now in 2036. And it's a complete difference. So we'll keep doing the work, and we're just hoping that we get enough support from people, hopefully understanding what it is, what this is about, and understanding what goes in, so that we're not butting heads, and we're not even enough to be doing all of this. We need togetherness in every area to be able to crack what we all win when we crack it. So fingers crossed, and hopefully we can achieve that.
That's an important point, togetherness. Michael, any final words?
Yes, I think what I just want to remind everybody involved in this business of show business is that it's more business than show. It's commercially driven, and the only way it's sustainable is if everyone's making money. So the idea that we're choosing favorites, whether they make money or not, it's frankly just kind of ridiculous to me. So just remember that cinemas don't reject films, audiences do. And programming is just reflecting the reality of what audiences want to see.
Thank you all so very much, Funmi, Ladun, Patrick, and Michael. This has been fantastic and very, very enlightening. And thanks very much to our audience. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your attention. So I wish you all a great rest of the day, and thank you very much. This has been truly, truly fun to have. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Right.
Bye.